Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. This webinar focuses on Black Friday, just 10 days away now. And this will be about expert predictions, reflections, tips, really for turning seasonal buyers into long-term customers. But really our focus today is about what we can still do to help convert more shoppers, right? I mentioned 10 days. Short period of time, but there are things we can still do, and we'll learn more about that today. My name is Jason Ferrara. I'm your moderator today and the Chief Marketing Officer at Searchspring. I'm really excited to welcome our panel of guests. Our panel of guests is Mike Warson, the Senior Sales Executive at Guidance, John Thrailkill, former EVP of Technology at The Container Store, and Sean Lynn, Director of Channel Partnerships at Bazaarvoice. I'll let each of the three of them introduce themselves in just a minute here as we get started. And gents, if you'd be so kind as to turn your cameras on. There's me, I'm Jason, there's Mike, he's in, thank you, Mike, and John and Sean. Guys, thank you so much for getting those cameras on. So before we get going, I want to cover the agenda quickly. We're going to do a poll. Charles, you can go back to the agenda slide. Sorry, I just mentioned Charles, who's our behind the scenes producer for this event, Charles Summers. So he and I will have a little conversation back and forth once in a while. Thank you, Charles. We'll start with a poll. We'll continue on to a panel discussion. I have some prepared questions for Mike, Sean, and John, and then I, of course, as moderator, reserve the right to follow up with some zingers that hopefully will elicit some great conversation. So thanks, guys. And we'll do Q&A, and then we'll end the webinar. So let's start with the poll. Charles, you want to get the poll slide up, and we can start talking through that. So for those of you that are on today, this is the participation section of the webinar. We're interested in your thoughts, right? What's your biggest concern or area of focus for this Black Friday and Cyber Monday? So is it out of stock items and sell through of what you have, performance of your technology, ability for your shoppers to find products, the shipping and delivery of those orders, or the follow-up after the holiday? And if it's not one of these and it's something else, feel free to jump into the chat and let us know that if it's something else. Got just a few more minutes. Half of you have voted, so we're going to wait just a few more minutes to get the rest of you on in there. Looking pretty good on votes. Here we go. We're almost at 80% of you have voted. Thank you very much. Yeah, pretty interesting results coming through. I think we're just about there on participation. So thanks for those of you that have voted. Charles, if you want to get the results up there. So out of stock sell through, the biggest concern and / area of focus, and in the time we've prepped for this webinar, I know that the panelists and I have touched on this a little bit. So everybody's got a point of view there, and we'll cover that. Tech performance, although product findability is really what concern more than tech performance. And shipping and delivery, holiday follow-up, those things aren't really the big issues for you right now. So let me just make some notes here, so when we go back to the slides, we can. There we go. Okay, Charles, we're ready to go back to the slides. So the first thing I'd like to do after this poll, again, thanks everybody for participating in that poll. As we look at the results here, out of stock items and sell through is kind of the #1 issue that we see here. No secret that supply chain is an issue. I mean, I think every issue of the Wall Street Journal that's come out in the last 3 months has had a front page article on supply chain issues. So Mike, you got a thought here about out of stock and sell through and sort of your clients or your take on the industry right now?
Yeah, I think everyone's scrambling for that answer. So I guess the only good news I would share with merchants is that you're not alone. We were chatting a little bit the other day about, Apple's scenario where they're out of stock on their cleaning cloths, and their attempts to do workarounds, but they're promising deliveries out in January. And so I think, maybe what we're seeing from some of our merchants is how do I sell something I don't have, and that I won't realistically have, but before the holidays, and what are my workarounds to that, and or how do I turn that into a marketing opportunity? And I think that's where some of the more creative merchants are going is, hey, let's really figure out how we can still sell when we don't have product, and yet can deliver some form of an experience to the consumer that's not going to leave them, frankly, pissed off, which is, I think, the real risk here. So I think it's that creativity and watching some of the more innovative merchants figure out how to work around that issue.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And just real quick, Mike, would you just give a brief synopsis who you are and
Sure.
Sorry.
Mike Worson, I'm a senior seller here with Guidance Solutions. We're a systems integrator and e-commerce agency, both sides of the house. My background prior to Guidance was with Adobe, Magento/Adobe as a senior seller for them, working with folks like Hewlett Packard and Albertsons and Apple Computer, Honeywell, some of the more household names, merchants large and small. But I'm now on the solutions systems integrator side and enjoying the ride over here.
Great. Thanks so much. John, how about you? Quick introduction and then your thoughts on out of stock, sell through kind of.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me first, and good morning, everybody. I joined the Container Store 30 years ago as a salesperson right out of college, and had an amazing career there that I just finished a month or two ago. In that time, I spent about 8 years in marketing, launched our first website, e-commerce website, I should say. Also was VP of stores for 9 years, and then spent the last 5 years running technology for the entire business. So I saw a lot in those times. I saw a lot of Black Fridays and a lot of Cyber Mondays. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind when you're talking about sell through and you're talking about inventory, getting more inventory now is not really what's going to happen in the next 10 days. I think for most retailers, it's going to be about making do with what you have. And one of the points, really 2 points I'd make there. One is that if you don't already have a culture if you have retail stores or within your distribution centers, if you are a pure play, you have to have a culture around inventory accuracy, because one of the worst things you can do is to have product and not have it represented accurately in your store systems or on your website for your customers. And that comes from a commitment from people. I think people think, well, gosh, I have systems that keep track of my inventory, and that's not correct at all. The people who interact with those systems are the ones that make adjustments to inventory when they sell things correctly. If there's multiple colors in a product and it has individual SKUs, you don't just ring 5 at one of those colors, you ring each one. These are the things that are going to lead to disappointment for customers if you don't have a culture around that accuracy of inventory. The other piece I would throw out is that you have to have communication to your teams about what you're doing. And it's inexcusable in my eyes for any business to have employees that don't know what's happening from a promotional standpoint. So if you haven't already done so, please make an effort to get your Black Friday plans into the hands of every employee who might touch a customer. That is, I think, key to their being able to do what's best for that customer. If that event or that offer isn't working correctly, or if you run out of things, if they know what it is and why you're doing it, then they can help take care of that customer in the moment.
Great, thanks, John. And Sean, last but not least here, just quick introduction of yourself and then thoughts on out of stock sell through.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Hey everyone, my name is Sean Lin. I'm with Bazaarvoice. I look after our North America partner ecosystem here through our channel partnerships. Regarding Black Friday, yes, supply chain, it's an issue. Supply chain is going to be stretched. I think my main advice to retailers is that they really need to just pivot on the Black Friday strategies. I think the biggest thing is to start early. I know we're only 10 days out, but whatever you can do to incentivize shoppers to come in store for in-store pickup as opposed to delivery, I think that can really help. I think that it eases the supply chain. It helps set better expectation with your consumers, and ultimately they should be happier, which is better for everybody. And so, yeah, we're Bazaarvoice, some of our studies have shown, roughly 46% of shoppers from a recent survey are shopping this month. Well, the shopping will continue into December, but the earlier that you can make changes right now, gets people in store, the better off everyone will be.
Yeah, thank you. I want to follow up on all of this stuff because the one key in each of your answers was people. Mike, you used the word creativity. A computer is only as creative as the way that it was programmed or the data that was had, the data that it has. Sean, you're talking about actually a person meeting a person in a store for pickup, and John, you're really talking about culture and communication. I think there's a brick and mortar plus e-commerce, and there's a pure play e-commerce. So in terms of people, are there I'm sure there are different strategies if I have brick and mortar and e-commerce as opposed to pure play. But what are some of the keys with the people? Mike, you're a system integrator. You're dealing with lots of different people involved in the process. How do you make sure everybody's on the same page there?
Yeah, I love John's comment, and that making sure you have a play sheet or a game plan and sharing that. I think that's a phenomenal tip to be able to pass along. I think it's also empowering those people. That you have to kind of let go a little bit sometimes in these days and times when things are fast and furious, and acknowledge and recognize that people are going to make mistakes. But if they're mistakes of effort as opposed to mistakes of laziness, then you have to live with those. And in those mistakes, you're also going to get some great wins. I've heard innumerable stories over the years of, gosh, never would have possibly thought that this could work. A countdown timer for, a product reveal. I mean, that's something that's with 10 days left, you can still do to create excitement around your site. And I heard that story from a merchant that it was, basically an intern who came up with the idea and was just told, hey, go run with it. And it was very nerve-wracking, but I think as long as people feel like they're empowered to be able to make mistakes, then guess what? They're also going to make some great wins, and you just have to be able to live with both of those. And especially this time of year, like I said, things are a little fast and furious. As long as no one's touching the core source code or messing around with your payment gateway, hopefully everything should continue to roll forward.
Yeah, John, anything to add in terms of people coordination there?
Yeah, I think Mike hit on a lot of the key things there, and the technology piece is one that is critical. I think that there were less people concerned about that, and I think that actually is a nice vote of confidence in the technology teams at all these companies that are represented on this call today. The challenge is exactly what Mike is saying: is when do you take your foot off the accelerator on things that you want to change, and how do you do things safely and in a way that doesn't jeopardize all the work you've done until now. I never liked the idea of code freeze and things like that. I like being able to make good choices and making decisions in the moment. And that's where I would come back to the people side, is when something is not right or something can be optimized, instead of having a hard and fast rule about saying, well, we just don't do this after this certain date, there should be discussion. There should be a risk and reward conversation there. And that's something that I think people should be more open to doing and confident about if you're communicating well. Again, if you have trust in each other and if you have good open lines of communication, you can make changes in the middle of big promotions. You just have to know what you're doing and why, and everyone has to hold hands and say, we're going to do this and make it happen. And if something does go wrong, we're all going to be together in it and not pointing fingers.
Yeah, really good points, guys, about the ability to make mistakes and having a culture to do that. A lot of good things happen, and things get moved along quickly, I think, in environments like that. Sean, you had mentioned it's still not too late to incentivize shoppers, talking about in-store delivery versus postal delivery of things. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. It's not too late to incentivize shoppers. What are the kinds of incentives, Sean, that you see that are possible in the next 10 days? I mean, in one respect, 10 days doesn't sound like a long time. In one respect, 10 days sounds like a long, sounds like a long
Yeah.
time. Let's talk about that and shopper incentives.
Yeah, I think also, picking back off of what Mike and John were talking about in terms of, technology changes. If a retailer, if a brand seller is able to really pull together and highlight user-generated content on their site, whether it be images, whether it be written content about products, that can really help create that in-person environment in an online system.
Right.
So in that regard, if retailers and sellers are able to highlight that and make those changes to their site to incentivize sellers to have more information about the products that they're looking to buy, that real life experience on your computer can really make that change and drive success in this holiday season.
Yeah, that is a great point, and that's an outstanding opportunity for content, right? If you think about all the content that you probably already have, and then all the content that exists that you may not have, generating some of that content really helps.
That's right. Everyone's worked so hard to collect that content. You should highlight it. It's proven to drive sales, and consumers love it.
Yeah. Great. Sorry, just making some notes here. I don't want to miss the juicy comments. The other issue that came up in the poll is tech platform. So we've touched on that a little bit here. Mike, you talked specifically about your experience with system integration. At this point, from a tech platform perspective, what's your take on, I'm worried about my tech platform?
Well,
we're 10 days out. It feels like I probably should not be worried about that, or am I just always worried about that?
yeah, I'm always worried about it. I mean, I don't, it's, test and retest and stress test and try and test again. It's like a mother bird on top of her eggs, waiting to feel the little peck, come through the shell, and then it does. And then there's that moment of joy / terror. Will they come? And then when they come, what will happen?
Right.
I always love trying to get as many different sets of eyes as possible on your site, particularly people outside of your organization. I always call it the grandma effect. Like, I always encourage people, send the site to people who are in no way, shape, or form associated to e-com, people who know nothing about your brand. Find a friend of a friend who's never heard of you before. Send your site to them. Make sure that it makes sense and that it appears as though there's nothing where they don't go like, oh, well, what is this? And a lot of times, even within fast fashion, we get acronym driven and things along those lines. And like I said, those second set of eyes or third set of eyes oftentimes will pick up a subtlety that you've been looking at it so often and so frequently that you just can't see it. It's like kind of being in the forest and we're all thinking alike. So I always like that idea of getting another set of eyes on a project. And then whenever possible and however possible, particularly is stress testing your site, running it through sandbox environments, throwing load testing at it. Again, even with 10 days out, there's still opportunities to be able to run those kinds of scenarios and getting ready in that regard.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time in my career when I learned the lesson of show something to somebody that has never seen it before and doesn't know anything about it. Because, there's always that moment where you do something, you don't show someone, and it ends up like, yeah, that's not how I wanted it, and someone comes to you and says, here's what you have to do. Slow down, show it to someone who doesn't know anything. Sean, your take on tech platforms, where we should be right now and in terms of 10 days from now and really through the end of the year.
Yeah, Bazaarvoice, it's a brand that consumers typically don't hear about, but we're powering all the major retail sites as well as many brands as well. I know our system teams here are entering lockdown, if not already. So I know we were just talking about code freezes and making alterations, but I know our team currently is in that state just to ensure smooth delivery of UGC for all our customers. I think one thing to add, it might be too late at this point, but something to always consider is user testing, as we've also just been talking about. Truly understand your customers on your websites and how they interact with your site. What makes them, what do they do before they convert? What do they do if they leave your site? You know, the layout of the site, the content of the site really plays a big part in driving conversion. So yeah, my point is understand your customer, how do they interact with your site, and you'll succeed.
Great. John, too late to test, or can we still be testing, and you know, how flexible can we be?
It's never too late, of course. And one thing I was smiling while Mike was talking about, you know, getting grandma to test and those things. And I'll share a quick story of something we did wrong and learned from over the years. I say we didn't do it wrong. We had a different philosophy on it, and that is we never allowed employee purchases on the Container Store website. The reason was twofold. One was we didn't think that it was necessary to create that functionality and support it when the majority of our employees either work in a store or they work in the Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we had 7 stores here. We wanted the employees here to go to the stores and to be involved in that environment. The new CEO of the Container Store, Satish Malhotra, came in March, and one of the first things he started asking is, how come we don't have employee purchases on the website? He quickly made us all think about the fact that means there are hundreds of testers who are not engaged that could be in the site all the time and using this with the perspective of their knowledge of the business to be able to say, hey, how come this is set up this way? And he was 100% right. That was something that the mindset at the time was the right idea, but the world had changed and we had not kept up with that. And to his credit, he said, we're going to fix this right away, and we did. And I think that's a testament to being able to make those admissions when you know that something has outlived its use, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And then so thank you. And then the third piece from the poll that I think is worthy of hitting on is product findability, right? I don't know how many people are listening, how many products everybody's got. John, I know the Container Store, and I can generally understand the amount of SKUs that you have there. At this point, product findability, right? How if we're worried about it, what are some things actions we can take to kind of alleviate our fears or, you know, waylay our concerns?
Yeah, I think one of the
point in the game. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. No, you jump in.
Oh, I was just going to say, just real quick, I think a lot of times it's trying to make sure that every engagement with a consumer is a shoppable one. So we talked a little bit about content earlier, and I think that's something that can be done within the 10 days left before Black Friday. Again, is looking at your page setup, looking at your content setup, particularly if it's secondhand content, and making sure those have shoppable engagement. Something as simple as buy now. You know, hey, I'm showcasing a piece of product over here, telling a story. You know, something as simple as dropping a buy now button onto that content can be really very powerful, because there's nothing more frustrating than I've experienced it as a consumer that you're engaging me with your product and you're telling me a story. That's cool. I'd love to buy that sweater. Now I have to leave that story and come over and now go search for that particular SKU and find that particular. No, I want the red sweater that guy had on right there. You know, and I think that's something that certainly can be done within the next 10 days that really enhances that conversion and that findability in a different way, the findability even within your own site.
Yeah, I would add that one of the things I think is most critical is that, and again, I think that most retailers do this, but just wouldn't assume, but there's got to be someone looking at the search results that only bring 1 or 2 items, especially if you're a retailer that's selling hundreds or thousands of SKUs like the Container Store. We always had someone on a daily basis looking and seeing what were the search terms yesterday that returned no results or 1 or 2 results. And in addition to that, it's also just looking at pretty much all the search terms to understand the trends that are there, because that's where you're going to pick up on people looking for something with multiple different approaches, different strings, that if a person looks at it, they can say, you know what, I know they're looking for drawer organizers, but they're calling it this and this and this and this. I've got to make sure that people using those terms are directed to the right landing pages to get that right result magically, even though they may not be asking for what we thought was the right thing. They're asking for the right thing. They just don't know what to call it. They know what they want, and we can tell. And again, if you were in person in a store, you'd figure that out in 2 seconds. But the search has to help with that, and you've got to have people dedicated to feeding it. Really, especially right now, all the time.
Yeah.
And
Sean?
just to add on to that, I think, I love the buy now button, making it really easy for consumers if they want to buy it, make it easy for them. I think also with UGC, with a star rating, with bringing together what other people have said about, great things about your product, I think that including that somewhere near the buy now button can help reassure the customer that, hey, other people like it. I see 4.5. I feel more confident in pressing that buy now button even faster. And I think to John's point on search results, I think UGC plays a huge part in that. Google and all the search algorithms love recency of data. And on product pages, the most, descriptions tend to be stale, but UGC is fresh and the search engines love that. So that will really help your results to drive customers to your site. The star ratings will help reassure them to buy it now.
Yeah, thank you. I can certainly attest to descriptions aren't always fresh. If I think about my day job, and part of my day job is evaluating the Searchspring website, I'm running across things every day that someone loved when they wrote it a while ago, but it isn't fresh today, and it feels that. You have to continue to wind through all that. And I'll echo the zero search results. I mean, I know in my time at Searchspring and talking with our customer success team, like over the phone, they see light bulbs go off in clients' heads where they see there's something that's returning zero search results. Like, whoa, I didn't, of all the things that I have to juggle every day, that's not one of the balls all the time, right? And so to recognize that is really key.
It's like telling them to leave your store. It's like, oh no, thanks, sorry, thanks for coming in. I mean, we've got something that will solve their problem, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean, think about it as how's that person going to buy if they can't find it, right? Yeah, core to what we're doing. Great. Well, thanks guys. That was the poll. Feedback on the poll there. I really appreciate that. Anybody who's listening to the conversation right now, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I know that Sean and John and Mike will be happy to field those questions. So feel free to type those in. But have no fear, I've got more questions, so we can keep going there. But I want to talk a little bit about predictions for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Aside from that being fun, I think it starts an interesting debate on what actually will happen this year compared to last year's, or what you see in the future. So, Sean, how about we start with you? Like, what is your prediction for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday shopping season?
Yeah, I think for this holiday season in particular, coming out of COVID, I know there is still COVID, but compared to last year, I think we're in a much better place. I think there's a lot of pent up demand, if you will, in terms of people are pumped up for this holiday season. So I think spend on products and services even are going to go through the roof because of last year. I think people are in the mood to celebrate and they feel safe to do that. So I guess it's not a real surprise, but I see this holiday season as a real big comeback for everybody. Post-pandemic ish, if you will. So
yeah, I really like that comment. I have a neighbor who is an alcohol salesman, so not only is that good for me, but it's interesting when we talk about people's mood and their ability to celebrate. As one thing that they're realizing is there's a pinch on the supply chain there as well, and so this idea that people are ready to celebrate. Right? People are looking forward to this time period. For them is causing a little bit of heartburn, right? Because they know what their inventory is and how it sells. So that's a really great point. John, how about you? Predictions for this time period?
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about Black Friday. I mean, it has always been so deal driven, and clearly that's ingrained in our minds as consumers, that when you see this time of year, if I'm going to pull the trigger on something around that time, I expect there to be some kind of offering with it. What's so different about this year is the numbers, like Sean was saying, are going to be very strong across retail. Everyone that's predicting these things is expecting, anywhere from 6 to 13% increase over last year's overall holiday sales. Walmart just this morning increased their fourth quarter predictions after their earnings results yesterday, and their same-store sales last quarter were fantastic as well. So they're +6 for the holidays. Walmart is. I mean, if Walmart's up that much, everybody's going to be up a lot. But what people also have to remember is that you've got unprecedented pricing power right now that has probably not been seen in retail, at least that I can remember in my career. The retailers that are going to win during this time period are the ones that are going to find a way to capture the offer-driven Black Friday customer with something that doesn't give up margin that they don't really need to give up. And that's the challenge. Now, 10 days out, it may not be quite enough time to make a lot of creative changes to that. But what I would say is, more importantly, you're playing the long game here. Black Friday is the start of the holiday season unofficially, right? You're trying to sell for the entire season because, as we all know, after Black Friday, after December 25th, everyone is still open for business the next day and has to do business and has to generate revenue and profits. So the mindset, I think, has to be around, what are we doing to capture this pricing power that we have? And what are we doing to, frankly, to raise prices where it's appropriate? I saw that something like 2/3 of there were senior executives at retailers interviewed by a group from Wharton. 2/3 of them said they were going to be raising prices. I looked at that and said, the other 1/3 either haven't spoken to their CFO in the last 12 months, or they are lying and they're going to raise prices, but they don't want to tell everybody that, or they just don't like to earn profits. I don't know how you would possibly say in this environment that you're not raising prices. So to me, as much as a consumer as I don't love that, I think as a business person, you have to take into account the increased costs that are out there, and the fact that you have to pass those along, and that consumers will pay it.
Great. So potentially fewer deals and potentially price increases as you look through the whole holiday season.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're gonna, this is the year we're gonna hear fewer and fewer of the technology tales of woe. I mean, in years past, we've heard about this site crashing and that site crashing and this scenario and that scenario. And I think if nothing else, the last couple of years, last 4 or 5 years, have really taught merchants, certainly larger merchants, I'd say even mid-tier, and even a bunch of smaller tier merchants, to be prepared for that push. It also is a byproduct of a lot of this movement to cloud, where once upon a time, if I was running Mike's shoe store, it was on my 2 servers that were in my back closet, and I'd get I'd run the promotion of the year, and all of a sudden there'd be smoke coming out of that closet because those servers were burning up. And now with the push to cloud, and with Azure and AWS and amongst many others, in terms of being able to offer that, I think the scalability has dramatically improved for, again, merchants large and small. So I think coming out of this year, we're going to hear far fewer of the stories that we have in years past around, oh, XYZ site went down. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see that hardly at all, and certainly not with any merchants of any size.
Well, that's
I would add to that. Sorry, I would add, if for an omni-channel retailer, if you made it through last year and you made any improvements, you should be fine, because I do think that the numbers for online shopping for Black Friday will probably be lower than 2020 for omni-channel retailers that are now open for business in their physical stores, but still well above 2019. So I'm not saying that it's going backwards, but those numbers last year were just, I mean, they were the only game in town for a lot of retailers. The only way you could sell something was online in many places. So the fact that it's not going to be quite as much pressure on that, I think, will alleviate some of that and lead to what Mike's saying too.
Yeah, John, just to add to that too, the Bazaarvoice data, aligns with what you just stated. Brick and mortar stores are still going to be #1 in terms of sales this holiday season. So just want to confirm what you just stated.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually was my next question, which was, you know, we talk about sales going up overall, but is this a year where people return to stores and to the detriment of e-commerce, or is this a more level playing field now because people are like, yeah, I browsed at the store, but I'm not going to wait in that line, and I'll just go home and buy it online? Like, what are the dynamics there of stores versus pure play online?
I think you're seeing that line start to blend a lot more, to John's comment about, you know, store strategy. Used to be, we'd have store strategy and we'd have online strategy, right? And they were, and oftentimes, and sometimes still are, literally people at opposite ends of the building who don't talk to one another. And those lines have clearly, and those teams have clearly on purpose been shoved closer and closer together. It says, what is our strategy? We're seeing merchants who are using, you know, their same imagery that they use online as in store, and vice versa, to make sure that that brand story carries through, and that it's not a bifurcated experience for the consumer. And then exactly your comment, Jason, is, yeah, you know, being able to buy in the store and then return ship, or you know, buy online and return storefront. That buy online, pick up in store. That may be one area in the technology stack that does start to get a little creaky. Is that idea? Hey, if I suddenly have this huge wave of people who are saying, you know, yep, I want to go buy, you know, this stack of containers, and now I'm expecting to be able to, just like the UPS guy or gal delivers it to my house and it seems fairly seamless, I'm expecting to walk in and boom, grab my thing and go. Well, all of a sudden it's going to be like, man, if that wave shows up, that pressure on storefront, I think, will be very, very interesting to try and adapt to.
Yeah, Sean, you had start to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that yes, I think the lines have been blurred in terms of online shopping versus in-store. I think the middle ground is buy online, pick up in-store. I think the benefit also is that inventory management has gotten better, because, you know, you can see online which stores have it. Stores benefit from just better visibility across the retail store chain of who's got inventory, and even at the warehouse level for online deliveries. So yeah, completely agree. I think it's to the benefit of everybody. I think stores have better visibility, consumers have better visibility into who's got the product.
Yeah, great. John, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I really agree with everything everybody's saying on here, and I apologize if you can hear. Someone decided to turn on 9, you know, gas-powered leaf blowers while we're talking here, as is what happens now as we're all meeting. So I didn't have anything to add to that point right there.
Great, sounds good. Thank you. All right, I like the predictions. Here's what I'd like to talk about next. What's, I guess, another prediction item? Like, what's the hot item? What's the big thing this year? And I have a follow-on question, which I think it makes this a little bit more relevant to our audience. But what's the thing? What is it? What's the one thing that everybody wants this year?
It's electronics, right? I mean, it has to be. That's, you know, I had trouble getting a Nintendo Switch for my daughter, who that's the only thing she had on her list, and had to track it down early. I do think, you know, one of the things I'll throw out about the holiday shopper, and it's actually a year-round shopper, but I've never ceased to be amazed by the ability of the American consumer to procrastinate. And no matter what the promotion is that we would do year-round, if it's a holiday thing, if it's a sale that has an end date, through the years, I have seen more and more and more of that purchasing happening at the very, very, very last minute. So even though everyone is saying that they are preparing for the holidays early and they're shopping early, and I think there's some numbers that showed from October retail sales that is potentially starting to happen, that it was being pulled forward, I don't buy it. I think that we will all be blown away by the amount of people that are still shopping at the end of December and still trying to find those gifts. And I think those electronics and those things that are hot that are already so hard to find are going to basically be impossible at that point.
Yeah, Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I support that statement as well. I think Xbox, I like video games. I still can't find an Xbox. I even looked at PS5 because I was considering a Switch, but I can't even find those. So it's real. The struggle's real. But honestly, I think, I think electronics, I completely agree with that. I think chips are in short supply, and that has a ripple effect across all electronic related items.
Yeah, Mike, thoughts?
You know, I'm a bit of a wine guy, and I'm also you can't see that cabinet, but I'm also a tequila guy. And so to your comment, John, about your buddy, I will tell you that high-end tequilas are in short supply. I think there'll be those pockets, and I'm picking out tequilas, but one example of things that again, electronics are very common and kids, popular kids toys, but I think there are these other arenas that have certainly been impacted, where if you're a tequila aficionado and you're on this call, you'll know my pain of trying to get extra añejos, or very, very hard to come by. And to John's comment earlier, their prices are definitely going up on those products because of that scarcity. And then to piggyback again on John's comment as well is I think some of that procrastination that we've all seen from consumers is a byproduct of the Amazon shipping effect, which is where once upon a time,
Yes.
if it's Christmas, I have to start thinking about, if I'm getting something shipped, I have to start thinking about that like now, right? It's because it's going to take 3 weeks for it to get here. And now we're all acclimated to this idea like, oh no, I just ordered today and it shows up tomorrow. And so now that's kind of caused this pattern. And so in terms of things to be, I'm going to rewind to one of our earlier comments, things to be thinking about and things to be tuning up on with 10 days left to go before Black Friday is making sure your shipping systems are all in good working order. You've got backups for both systems and people as it pertains to your shipping management and communication with your carriers, so that you don't have that be the stumbling point. There's nothing more frustrating than to execute, hey, I got a consumer through a conversion funnel. They got to the bottom of the process. They actually bought what I wanted to buy. I'm all excited, woohoo, I got the order, it goes to my warehouse, it gets picked, it gets stuck in a box, and then it sits in my loading dock for 4 days. And you're like, what happened? What went wrong there? And so it's again, I think shipping is another good point to be making sure you're well tuned up on with 10 days left to go before Black Friday.
Yeah, great point there. And it's interesting because in the poll, shipping and delivery was a lower item, less of a concern in the poll. Why is that? Why are respondents less concerned about that? Is that just I got to leave that up to somebody else? Is that just I got other things that are more important that I have to
I'm guessing it's the nature of the audience or who's on this call. We've got probably a lot of digital marketing people, brand marketing, product people who are, frankly, more top of funnel in terms of that process, as opposed to operational people. If this audience was geared towards a systems conversation, I think that poll rating would have been much higher. And indirectly, it's not my backyard, meaning I did my job. I got my product sold. That was what I've been chartered with. That's how I get reviewed. What happens with shipping really in a micro environment isn't quote unquote my problem, but the reality of it is that if my products don't get pulled through and off the loading dock, it then does become my problem.
Yeah.
Right, totally agree with Mike. And also to Mike's point earlier, I think as a consumer, we're just so used to, next day or 2-day turnaround on shipping. So it's just ingrained in our head. We don't think about it as much. But in today's world, in this current environment of the holiday season, it is a real factor in terms of delays. I was thinking about what to get my wife. I found the item at Williams-Sonoma. She's into Harry Potter, but I looked at the shipping. It's not going to ship until mid-January. So I have to back to the drawing board. Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Well,
You could give her a picture.
Now that you've told everybody on the webinar, Sean, you're going to have to come up with something else. John, go ahead.
I was just going to say the idea of giving her a picture of that, it might not work. It depends how long you've been married. If it's, if you're over 10 years, you can probably get away with it. But
3 kids takes care of, not the same.
That's right. The other comment about the shipping piece, I was speaking to the CEO of a direct sales retailer yesterday, actually. And one of the things that a story he was telling me was just happened last week. Their system for notifying customers about the shipping leaving the distribution center had a glitch in it over the past week. And all of a sudden, there were literally thousands of orders that had gone through the system properly. But when that order was completed, they were not getting the email out to the customer saying, hey, here's your tracking number, and here's when this is going to arrive. So the good news is the product was on the way. So this is not a terror-inducing scenario, but the challenge was that from an internal standpoint, the team that looked at that said, well, hey, the product's on the way, so we need to get this fixed, but it's not that big a deal, and we'll get to it. And of course, when he found this out, came in and said, are you kidding me? This is horrible news. I mean, the fact that they never get that notification means that they are hammering the phones right now and calling to see where their items are that they thought were going to ship for 1 or 2 days. The fact that it's on the way is good, but that's not okay. And I think that's the message I would send, is that you've got to be, if you're at the top of the funnel, of course that's where your focus is, but you've got to know and keep up with what's going on, because they could have easily put a message on the website to say, here's what had happened. They could have emailed those customers. There are ways they could have communicated what was going on outside of that once they knew it, that would have reduced the amount of angst from the customer side, and of course their employees that are trying to take care of customer service at that point, and having to be hammered by that. So just keep those lines of communication open and make sure that you're not thinking something is small when you really think through it, that needs to be acted on. Take action on it.
I love that comment, John. And then one of the things we've seen is that where it's someone, they'll have that kind of a pain point, and the teeter-totter becomes, do I blast out to everyone who placed an order, right, by the way, I'm sorry, but our shipping notification system is down, and there's that, oh God, I don't want to cause that friction for somebody who that's not a concern for. Right. But the reality of it is that if I'm over communicating, and frankly, just we talked about earlier, like oversharing within my shop, if I'm frankly oversharing with my customers and I'm telling them, hey, I'm sorry, we have a problem. Everyone, people react to that humanism to say, yes, all right, yeah, I've had a bad day at my office too, and stuff happens, and okay, I'm not happy about it, but you've preempted you've preempted that phone call at least. You're still going to get the person who's going to complain about free ice cream and sprinkles on Friday, who's going to call in and complain even though they got the email explaining it. But at least you'll get the more reasonable people that you'll cut out of that herd who are going to make that phone call.
Yes.
Yeah. I think on communication, I think acknowledgement of either something good or bad is good. I mean, people want, if people ask a question, it's whether they get a good answer or a bad answer, at least there's acknowledgement. And I think from a user-generated content perspective, when users leave good comments, when they leave bad comments about a product, I think it's really important for either the retailer or the brand to respond to that comment, to that review, whether it be good or bad. It's acknowledgement. I think that's very important.
I also like Sean's comment. The other thing I always say is catch them while they're doing something right, meaning, hey, we expected to ship this out in 4 days. Great news, we're shipping it out in 3. That we're exceeding even our own standards. And I love getting, as a consumer, I love getting those emails, and or the emails again talking about things you can do Black Friday or get ready for even post Black Friday is the how did we do? That little poll, that little question out to a consumer, like how'd it go? And being prepared to listen to the feedback, good and bad, right? And really owning those acknowledgments. And to Sean's point is, when you get one of those that comes back and it's 1 star out of 5, is having somebody send a quasi-personalized reply back. Really sorry, hope we can make it better next time. Here's 5% off. Or, even if something doesn't have to be a monetary offer, please accept my most sincere apologies, and I hope we have a chance to, earn your business again. Just again, that humanism involvement.
Yeah, I love that, and we have time for one more question and set of comments, but I want to bring this back to the start of our time together today, which, even though we're talking about a transaction that happens online, the person is the center of this transaction. And it keeps coming back to that, whether it's the person at the business or whether it's the shopper, right? Whether it's the merchant or the shopper, there's a person there, and we succeed through communication, and we succeed through being human, and we succeed through sort of understanding the issues that people have in a time period that feels compressed and pretty intense. And I just love the idea that as much technology as we have, it really does connect back to that the person involved in the transaction, the people involved, and how they talk to each other. So thanks for drawing that out, is so important, I think. So thank you, guys. Here's the opportunity for tips. What's the one tip, the one thing you would leave people with as we exit the webinar? What is a tip they can still, take advantage of in this 10-day period, or even something great for the holiday season in general? Mike, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mentioned in passing earlier, but I do like that idea of the countdown timer. I think it's fairly simple to implement. It's a banner. It could just be a countdown timer to a product launch. It could be a countdown timer to a reveal. It could be just a countdown timer to when your sale starts, or it just could be a countdown timer to the holiday period, right? But that invariably creates urgency to consumers when they see that. That, oh, I need to do something, right? And that it can be a very subtle, compelling aspect. And so I think with 10 days left, that would be my one tip that I think is very low bandwidth, very low pressure point to implement, very low risk. What you want to have that countdown timer, associated to can fill in the blank. But even if it's just, hey, we've got X number of days and hours until we get to carve turkey. That would be my 2 cents of a tip for merchants.
Great, thank you. John, how about you?
Well, I know that there are a lot of folks in this webinar who there's a point in the game when you all you can almost do is stare at the screen and look at the numbers as they come in, and there's really not a lot left to do. What I would strongly encourage you to do, if you haven't already done so, is I'm not saying to start your planning for next year, because that's you're always going to capture those ideas as they come up, but this time period is when you typically capture a huge amount of new customers, and you acquire so many people that have never been associated with your brand before, because you're doing offers and because they are engaging for a reason to buy a gift or whatever it is. I would say that this is the perfect time to figure out how you're going to retain those customers and grow them over the next 12 months. Because at the next question you're going to get asked in January is, how are you going to comp those great numbers we just had? And this is the right time to be thinking about, what are we going to do with all that great power we have and all these great new customers, and how are we going to activate them through the next 12 months?
Thank you, John. Sean, how about you?
With parting thoughts, I would say whatever you can do to utilize your user-generated content to help drive your conversions, do it. I think customers, they love the reassurance of seeing and hearing about other customers' experiences with your products. Utilize any imagery that users have shared. Real life imagery is powerful. And at the same time, it'll have a secondary effect in helping drive your SEO to help drive more customers to your site. So whatever you can do with your UGC, I highly recommend it.
Great, thank you, Sean. And thanks again, guys, for the panel and the time today. I'd like to thank everybody who's on the line, listening to us, and looking at our talking heads today. I really appreciate it. We wish you the best for the Black Friday, Cyber Monday season, and for the holiday season. We wish you the best for the things that you're most worried about, with out of stock items and technology performance and product findability. Hopefully we've been able to help bring some sanity to that anxiety. So the last thing I'll leave you with is, we're going to do this again on December 7th. We'll have part 2 of this. We'll do a little recap of the season, and we'll talk a little bit more about holiday season and leading into 2022. So we'd love to see you all back here on December 7th. If you registered for this webinar, you're also registered for the December 7th webinar. don't hesitate to bring friends along. I'm sure that you know, they can benefit from some of the wisdom here from Sean and John and Mike. So thanks everybody, really appreciate it. Have a great day, have a great selling season, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.